I'm Dana Mauriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Bob Young, founder of Geese Chasers. Here's the wild idea: using a border collie dog to humanely chase geese off yards, parks, and golf courses. I wanted to talk to Bob because this issue felt personal to me. Growing up, our local swim team was called the Graydon Geese because there were so many geese in our local pool. I can understand the pain of sharing your space with hundreds of Canadian geese and their droppings. And I thought that Bob's plan to help property owners and managers reclaim their space from the geese with the help of very tenacious border collies was absolutely brilliant. We're going to talk about 3 key decisions in Bob's journey: the decision to take on his first client, the decision to quit his day job to focus on the business, and the decision to grow through franchising. Enjoy the conversation. I want to start with the first decision of taking on your first paying client.
Right.
So my understanding is that you did not seek out this opportunity. This opportunity found you. So I want to
100%.
start by hearing about that fateful conversation with John Goodwin at the Ramblewood Country Club and how your journey began there.
I was practicing medicine at the time, and my mom told me a long time ago when I was a young adult that don't worry about getting a job you like or getting a major that you like in college. Worry about getting a hobby you like on the weekends because everyone hates their job. I said, Mom, I can't go through life like that, because I had this burning entrepreneurial business spirit in me. So I've always had that drive in me. And every day I'd come home from work after either in surgery or seeing patients, and we had a dog named Boomer. We had this border collie that was probably about a year old at the time, back in 1999. And he just drove us nuts. These dogs they're working dogs. They need a purpose. They need to be emotionally and physically exhausted every day. So I'd have to take them out. As soon as I got home from work, I usually got home first and got the kids and took the kids out to the field with me and threw the ball to Boomer till my arm fell off for like 45 minutes every night. One day while we're up there, golf course owner stops by, named John Goodwin, gets out of the car, introduces himself, and starts talking about my dog. He goes, that looks like a purebred border collie. Long story short, he goes, well, I have a horrible problem with geese at the country club I own. I'm like, oh yeah, I played there. I said, I won't play there anymore. I can't even putt the ball in your greens because you got so much goose droppings everywhere and in the sand traps and on the fairways. I said, it's just not enjoyable. He goes, Bob, I have tried everything. Noisemakers, flight control sprays, all this different stuff. He had a whole shed, long story short, full of this stuff that he tried. So I said, he goes, well, would you mind bringing your dog out? You think he'd chase geese? I said, John, this dog will chase your wife, your kid, and your mother-in-law all day. He's so smart, but he's a degenerate. He just needs a job. He goes, well, if you bring him to my course, you can have all the free golf. I show up the next day, 5 o'clock. I get there, and I'm waiting by where the pro shop is and where all the golf carts are stored. So next thing I see is John come flying up from the 18th hole, and all I see is this long pole, and something's dangling from him. I'm like, what the heck is that? So as he got closer, I'm like, that's a stuffed animal. What are you doing? It looked like a jousting thing from medieval times, right? It was that long. He gets out, and he's like all frustrated. I said, John, what are you doing? He goes, Bob, I've tried everything. I read in the trade journals that they're starting to use border collies successfully in the Midwest and country clubs to control their goose population humanely, right? I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that, John. He goes, so I figured I'd get a border collie stuffed animal, put it on the end of the pole, and that would scare him away. He goes, they just move out of the way of the cart and just stand there. I'm like, John, that's not going to work. So, all right, John, just leave me where you want to go. So we go out in the course, and there was about 500 geese on one of these fairways, and Boomer was like up over hill. The geese couldn't see him. I let him loose, and he heard him, and Boomer just took off over this hill, and he just looked like this big, hairy bowling ball go in the middle of 500 bowling ball pins with feathers, and boy, did they scatter. They scattered, and they turned around and flew over top of me and John, and all I see is John ducking into the golf cart, because all you heard was all the poop pelting you and dropping all around you as these 500 geese were flying over you. And Boomer cleared the whole thing, and then Boomer shot off and took off like I lost him. He was about 300 yards from me. He goes, oh, that's where the big pond is. That's where they all nest and everything. We get down there. Boomer goes flying like Super Dog into the lake. He must have stayed in that lake the first day at least 20 to 30 minutes until everything with a feather was out of that lake. He got up, he looked around, and he took off like a shot to the next fairway. Next thing you know, another 100 geese are lifted. We spent probably a good 45 minutes on that golf course the first day and had to clear at least 500 to 1,000 geese off that course. I mean, it just looked like a completely different course without all the geese gone at that moment. And I came out every day after that for the first, like 4 weeks, and the golf course was completely, nature just took over. They cleaned all the poop up. Other wildlife came in.
I didn't realize you kept coming back after that first visit daily
yeah.
for a few weeks. So it sounds like the first time you came, it was about, hey, why not? Let's just give Boomer some exercise.
Oh, yeah.
When was the point when you started to say, oh, this isn't about giving Boomer some exercise. Like,
Yep.
I'm going to take payment for this. This is a real valuable service, and I'm creating
Yep.
an impact here. When did that shift happen?
So this guy comes up to me. He goes, you the guy clearing the geese off this course? I said, yeah. He goes, well, I just want to thank you. You've given us our course back. So this guy introduced himself. Hi, I'm Mike. He goes, listen, I'm a member of 2 other local golf courses, very exclusive golf courses, all private. And we have a heck of a problem. They've tried everything. Can I give you their information? Can you go call on them? I said, sure. He goes, in my development, I spend $10,000 to $20,000 in landscape repair. He had a beautiful home on like an acre of property that backed up to a beautiful lake and about 10 large, 5,000 square foot homes. So he goes, and could you come out tomorrow and give me a quote for my property? He goes, you got to get rid of these geese. They're all in my driveway. My kids are bringing the poop in the house on their shoes, and I can't take it anymore. Fine. So he starts paying me. I go out there, I visit with him. He hires me. The 2 other golf courses hire me.
And what shifted for you? You had already been doing this for a few weeks. You're doing the job, albeit not paid.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get the first paycheck to do this.
Yeah.
What flips for you mentally at that point?
I'd show up at Mike's house. He's paying me $99 a visit, and I might spend 2 minutes there. I'm like, there is a lot of upside to this business, right? What I could make doing this. I knew it was a valuable service because I was told how valuable it was by all the golfers and the members. My mom and dad thought I was nuts. I mean, really nutty. I guess as a kid and as an adult, because after 9 years in college and the license to practice medicine, my mom and dad told me that they thought they were going to put me in a mental institution. They thought I cracked. And my mom...
When what happened? When you told them that you were going to chase geese for a living?
Yeah, no one's going to pay you to chase geese with that stupid dog. What are you doing? You just, 9 years of college, and now you're doing this. And my mom, before she died, she goes, I learned never to doubt you. Because every time I doubted you, you landed on your feet and everything went well for you. She goes, no matter what you did, you landed on your feet. I said, well, Mom, it's not like I didn't think about this stuff or, I wasn't leaving jobs without some other form of income or something else, that was providing something for my family. I wasn't that kind of person, but I did take a lot of risks.
So right now you're at the point of the story where you have 2 clients who've come to you, I guess 4 clients, because Mike gave you 2 other golf courses. You have 4 people who have said, we want your services. Yeah. At what point do you say, I'm going to try and get my 5th client, my 6th, I'm going to try and grow this?
Well, at that point, I'm like, okay, I got something here. The next step is I had to create a marketing plan. It was grassroots. It was knocking on doors. It was talking to property management companies, because when Mike hired me at his development to do his house, he put me in touch with MCM Property Management. I went and met with the owner, Marianne McNulty. She was wonderful. She really got me started in this business, and she pointed me in directions of the trade shows they do. And I didn't even know what a trade show display was. I'm like, okay, that's where I started building the business. I started building the business on offering Dunkin' Donuts coffee carafe and bringing it in and maybe having 6 property managers in front of me that maybe managed 150 properties between them. So I put together a really ancient, I think I still have it somewhere, like it's in my scrapbook, my first flyer that was pretty funny. Like, who are you going to call? I didn't even have a name at the business at that time. I was like, who are you going to call? Goose Busters or something, I think I put on there.
I love that.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, but just real ancient stuff, kind of like what I did when I was, a kid, when I put signage out. And I would just go around. I started with all the golf courses, mistake. Golf course trade shows, mistake. Spending marketing dollars, going after golf course superintendents with newsletters or brochures, mistake. The property managers are our bread and butter in this business. The property managers is what I started to focus on, and that's when it took off with doing what's called lunch and learns, getting in front of these people, introducing and educating the public, because I started this when this wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
This wasn't
You created a category, absolutely.
A category in the industry with hundreds of people who imitate us, which is a great form of flattery, but not when they're using my name or using stuff off my website or wrapping their cars like mine. I mean, it kept my lawyer busy early on in this business, with cease and desist. And I'm not a litigious guy, so I was a little uncomfortable with that. And plus, that costs money, right? And so it's the price of doing business. And I learned that the hard way. I was doing the superintendents of golf course shows, trade shows, spending a lot of money that I didn't have. I wasn't making that much, but I was throwing money into the business. You got to spend $2 to make $3. In any type of business, you have to invest. And I always say, if you don't have traction in the first 3 to 5 years, you've got a hobby. You don't have a business, right?
What made you confident to invest in the business and to go to these trade shows? That's not an insignificant amount of time and money. When you have a family, a full-time job, it's a lot.
It's one word: instinct. I felt it. I knew I had something. One gift that I've been given from the good Lord is that I can read people pretty quickly, and I understand, not 100% of the time, always, but I've got instinct where if I feel something, chances are it's true. That's the way I feel, and I felt it with this business, and boy, was I doubted. I offered 2 friends in full partnership to help me grow it, and they just laughed at me. And boy, they ain't laughing anymore. They're smiling, but they ain't laughing.
So if I understand, you're still working in the medical practice alongside this for quite a while. Yeah. What is the point where you decide to quit your job, and why?
Well, the inflection point came when I was getting up at 4:35 in the morning, chasing geese at first sunrise at the golf courses and the development and the other properties I was starting to pick up. He's starting to come along, and then getting done at 5 and coming home and picking up Boomer and going out for another 2-3 hours. So I had to take on kind of a part-timer. I hired I coached hockey, and I was one of the parents there was unemployed, and he was looking for something to do. So I started paying him like $20 an hour to run my dog. Eventually he got a couple border collies of his own. He became my junior partner for a few years, and that's when I first started to scale the business. I needed help. It was just a matter of, I was one person with one dog. I couldn't hit everybody. When you start getting to 6, 10, 12, 15 accounts, and someone's calling you, hey, I got Geese at 6:45, and another one says, I got Geese at 6:50, and I got Geese at 7 o'clock, and they're 20 miles apart. It's not doable.
Okay, so at that point, you had been doing simultaneously Geese Chasers and your job for a few years, right?
Yeah, a few years.
And you're kind of bookending super early mornings, late nights, and doing this.
Yeah.
So
weekends.
So I imagine that for a while you're wanting to quit because you already said this is a job you didn't like. Right. So what is the moment where you go from I want to quit to I am going to quit?
Yeah, I had a 3-year contract, so it was only 2 years into the contract, and the people that I worked for were not happy. It's the only time my lawyer has ever said that he's seen an employer in an at-will employment state refuse someone's letter of resignation. He goes, you got to frame this for me. So he still has it to this day. Yeah. So I stayed on another 6 months for him until they could find my replacement. And then I moved on, and I left for about a year and a half. And I didn't go back into medicine after that. I took a job at a university as the head athletic trainer at a small Division school, Division III school. So I did that because it freed up all my mornings and early afternoons. I only had to go in the late afternoon, early evenings and cover events and practices. So it freed me up to do all my marketing and sales calls in the morning and chase geese. And then the guy I hired handled me in the afternoon and evenings when I was, working.
Oh, that's so smart. So what I hear, which I think is such a good lesson, because often it seems like such a black and white decision for people. I'm either going to have the day job I have now, or I'm going to quit and I'm going to have nothing. Right. But you had this middle ground, which is I'm going to have a different job, which will provide me with presumably healthcare, income, stability, but it'll also give me the flexibility that I need to balance these two things.
Yes.
Now, at some point, you quit that athletics job and you were 100% Geese Chasers. When did that happen, and why did you make that choice?
One of my wife's best friends married a very wealthy guy that was worth billions. He started a very successful brand. And I remember sitting down with him at dinner about 15 years ago. I said, Wayne, what's the one takeaway from starting this and now a global brand that you're worth billions and billions of dollars, right? He goes, Bob, this is the best advice I can give you. He goes, focus on one thing and make it the best it can be in whatever category you're in. Make it the standard. Make it the best. He goes, I see too many times entrepreneurs have a business over here and they got check cashing and they got a little restaurant, they got a coffee shop and they got some financial thing. He goes, that's fine. He goes, but that's not quality of life and you're not bringing in the amount of money if that guy just focused on one good thing and made it the best it could possibly be. He's got above average or mediocre businesses that are giving him, income from 4 or 5 different streams. He goes, that's not the way to do it. And that was a turning point. That was a turning point. I focused in on my business and gave it 100%. That was it. It just went from here. It was always growing, but it just went like this.
And was that decision about instinct again, which you've talked about, or was there also data there about you projecting what this could be perhaps, or anything else? How did you feel confident to make that choice beyond the advice you were getting from your friends?
Instinct, and I just saw the regular growth pattern at that point over 12 years, and we'd never had a down year, even in the downturn of the real estate market in 2008 to 10 when everything crashed. I mean, that was bad during that time, and people were like, well, is your company going to survive? We grew. We grew during that time.
So you had a lot of data. I mean, you had your instinct. You also had 12 years of data, as you said, to make this decision with, which is hugely powerful. Why do you pick franchising as the path for growth?
Well, because I was being asked for territories all around the area, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, different parts. Even people were asking me for, like, can I have Mercer County? Can I have Monmouth County? Can I have Essex County? I said, you can't have anything right now. I had a guy that I did a 50-50 joint partnership down in Northern Virginia for a few years. And it was a 50-50 split. I'm like, boy, there's money to be made here. That guy's doing all the work and I'm getting 50% of, his gross revenue. But that's the deal that we made, and he was happy and I was happy. It eventually ended because I went into the franchise end of it and started selling franchises. But I was being asked a lot early on in this business. I'm like, well, people must see that there's something to this, a lot bigger than what it appears with, 30 clients locally, just little HOAs, commercial properties, a couple golf courses, school district, maybe a small little elementary school. That's how it grew like that organically. And then, when the franchise hit, I sold like 4 or 5 like right away in all these different territories. And they're to this day all doing well.
And interestingly, it sounds like this part of your story echoes the beginning of your story where your first customers came to you proactively. Yeah. Similarly with franchising, it seems like the first franchisees were really people who were coming to you and saying, please, can I franchise? You say, I don't have a franchise to give you, but I'll create one if you want it.
Yeah, and I did. And it took me about 3-4 years to create it. Yeah, it was a lot of work. And to this day, and I worked with a guy who helped start Benihana and Subway. He was in his mid-80s at that time. His name was Saul, and he was a wonderful man. And boy, did I learn a lot from him.
Well, we've gone through your decision to start your first projects with Boomer Chasing Geese, to start taking money to do this, to quitting your day job doing this full time, to franchising. Yep. So we've looked backwards all this time. Help us look forward. What's coming up next for you? What are you excited about?
Well, I think that what's coming up next is still we're doing organic growth as far as our franchises are concerned. We're expanding into territories. We rank the different areas around wherever there's fresh grass as a food source and a body of water close by that they can escape to for safety, you're going to have geese.
Yep.
And people do. And it's a problem all throughout the United States and throughout the world. We've had calls from France and England over the years. We get calls from Palm Springs, out west, LA, San Francisco, Seattle recently, those surrounding areas. Yeah, we get calls from everywhere. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I see a lot of franchise models, build up 100, 200, 300 units, and boom, they're closing 90% of their stores. The franchise fee pays for basically everything you do for the new franchise owner. It doesn't put money in your pocket. Once taxes beat you up and everything else you pay to get these people going, you don't make money there. You make money in the long term when you're taking, a dime of every dollar that they make down the road. That's where the money compounds, but that's years away. So you have to be patient with a business like this. But, eventually I think any entrepreneur, any business owner always wants to grow a business to eventually, pass it on to the next generation or sell it or pass it on to somebody that has the similar vision that you do, that will really nurse the business along and respect it the way that we have after all these years. I think that's the goal of most entrepreneurs, I think, is to leave a legacy for the next generation, your kids, or to sell it to somebody that's going to honor it, all the hard work that you've put in. I mean, we're into this thing now 27 years. Hard to believe. Most businesses don't make it that long.
That was Bob Young talking about his journey building Geese Chasers. I want to talk about 3 key lessons I took away from that conversation. First is that you have found a deep, deep customer need when that customer is hacking together their own solutions to the problem and already spending money to try and solve it unsuccessfully. Bob told the story of that golf course owner who was so passionately trying to rid his property of geese that he got a stuffed border collie, put it on the end of a broomstick, and drove around waving it in a golf cart. That's dedication. That's someone who has a real need. Second, say yes before you're ready. One of the members of the golf course where Bob was working his first job with his dog Boomer asked him for his business card. Bob was perplexed at first. He didn't consider himself to have a business doing this. This was just a one-off thing he was doing for the golf course owner. But when that member said, "Oh, I thought you ran a geese chasing business," he said, "I guess I do now," and started saying yes to additional requests as they came in. Third, focus can help you grow. Bob ran the business for years on the side of his day job. He got some great advice from a neighbor and friend that one of the keys to success is focus. It was a big wake-up call for him to look at all of the success and growth that Geese Chasers as a business had already had when he was only working on it part-time. And he thought, wow, what more could this be with focus? So he quit his job and he helped the business grow even more. Once he gave that business its focus, it took off like a rocket ship. Now, if you want to know more about Bob and his journey, and there's so much more to know, I highly recommend that you check out his memoir. I'll put the link in the show notes. One of my favorite things from reading his memoir are the stories that he shared about how he got started in entrepreneurship as a kid. His first business was getting paid to catch snakes and then selling those snakes to a local pet shop. That is a born entrepreneur. This is Dana Mauriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.